The nation of Paraguay is showing courage and a deep friendship to Israel. This December, under the leadership of their president, Santiago Peña, Paraguay will move its Israeli embassy back to Jerusalem. President of Paraguay, Santiago Peña, joins me. Good evening, sir. And how important a decision is this to move your embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, like the United States has done?
Good evening, Greta. It's such a pleasure to be in the show with you. I campaign on this. I talk about for many, many years that Paraguay should move back its embassy to Jerusalem, where it belongs. We have a long-standing relation with Israel. We were a decisive vote at the creation in the UN many, many decades ago. And we have remained a very close and loyal friends. So last year, I was meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu here at the UN, and we announced the reopening of the Israeli embassy in Paraguay, which happened a couple of days ago. And in December, I will be in Jerusalem to move back the embassy where it belongs. And of course, we stand very close. We have been supporting Israel in all of the votes since the horrible, terrible attacks of October of last year.
You know, it's particularly notable to me because, I mean, you could have taken the easy way out and delayed it. I mean, that, you know, you could have done that, but you're doing it in the midst of, of all that's going on in the Middle East. And I must say that, it makes me want to go visit Paraguay because it sounds like, the courage of your friendship.
You should, and you're more than welcome. Paraguay has a history of hardship. We have embraced our hardship, a country that was great in the mid-1800s, and we went to a horrible war against our neighbor, and it was truly a Holocaust. We lost 2/3 of the population, 90% of the male population, and they took away 60% of our territory. So we went through very difficult, hard times, and we understand that the only thing that matters is to fight for the right causes, no matter how hard they are. So we stand very strongly supporting Israel. We have a long-standing relation with Taiwan. We are probably the largest country in the world that still support Taiwan. And this is not only based on friendship, but mostly on self-determination, principles of democracy and freedom. And the same applies to our support to Ukraine. Despite having a great relation with Russia and a lot of commercial economic activity, but we think that supporting Ukraine is supporting our own cause, the cause of a country that was invaded many decades ago, and the suffering and the hardship, it was horrible, and this is something that I don't wish to any country. So Paraguay is a country of peace, but we also have to do many of the hard things that you have to do to defend the things that you believe.
Well, but it's also, to me, I mean, I've studied a little bit more about Paraguay today because I was thrilled to have you on today. But it's also sort of a beacon of inspiration. I mean, the fact that you're such a good friend of Taiwan, when a lot of countries, they worry about, China and the economic impact of alienating China. But I mean, you're also standing up for Taiwan.
Absolutely. And I personally, I'm convinced of this. I had the opportunity to know the experience and to live in Taiwan when I was very young, and this is a great country with great people. And Paraguay thinks that self-determination. Greta, Paraguay was the first country to gain independence 230 years ago, ahead of Brazil, ahead of Argentina, ahead of most of the countries in Latin America. We were a success story in the 1800s, and it was intolerance. It was probably not the idea of integration that make Paraguay life so terrible. But today we look again on the ideals, on the principle of freedom and democracy. We suffer one of the longest dictatorships in South America, so we know very well. That's why we are also a very strong voice defending Venezuelan democracy and fighting all the horrible things that are happening currently. Because we have a moral obligation in defending this principle in our region and of course, for all the other regions that are fighting for freedom.